This is my first attempt at this online lecturing. I prefer to have more discussion, but I can talk, but you have to send back stuff to me by the chat. So I just review. Were any of you at our Sunday session, the 22nd? If you were, just indicate on the public chat. Otherwise, I just assume not. Okay. Yeah, Lisa, you were there. Angela or Dion, were you there? Okay. So I guess for you and Angela. Okay, yes. So Dion, I'll just give you a little brief on what happened on that day. But it was divided into two. Let me start with the second half, which was done by George Roper. He talked about compliance. I've asked him to do, and he's agreed to do another session on compliance like this. The first part I introduced discussed the court, but also I started with corporate governance. And I'm going to continue. What I found some wonderful slides. I decided, let me start that again. I decided I won't go through what we did, but I recorded for you. Because I've recorded that already, and it's both visual and you have the sound. So if you want, you can then indicate to me if you have any questions or you want to talk about anything during a meeting. I have no problem. I would appreciate that. What I'd like to do is use some of these slides that I downloaded. There are a number of them. They're sort of a different. A lot of them are from a U.S. perspective. But they're also the one I want to do today. I think you're looking at it called International Corporate Governance. Talks about the variety of issues in corporate governance, or the variety of systems, corporate governance systems. And what I'd like to do also is, if we have time, to go on to start looking at the board, the role of the board. So I'm going to ask Dion, you to go back on after the class to look at the first slide in this. It's on the corporate governance from Stanford Business School. It's there. It's number one. The first one we did last class, or introductory one. This one we're going to look at international corporate governance. What I'd like you to do also, if you have any questions, just send them. If you want me to deal with a question, I know there's a little delay, but just send a question and I will stop and can discuss it or give my view. I'm sorry about I guess you're used to it, but I'm not. It's one-way talk, but I guess we'll have to do with it. But we can also find ways to talk outside of class in terms of people want to discuss any issues or so forth. So unless there are any other questions, I'm going to start this one called International Corporate Governance. This is the number 2 one you'll find on the sheet, on the list when you go back to look at the paper. I've also put up a lot of videos. So most of them are very short, but they're worth looking at. We'll talk about the different types of corporate governance, different theories of corporate governance, issues about the role of the board, challenges to corporate governance, and so forth. So there are a number of videos I put up on corporate governance. Also a number of readings, a lot of readings. What I'm going to do is go through them tomorrow and send an email to you on what I think you should look at as a priority. Because you can only do so much. I prefer to give you a little more than a little less. Prefer wanted to give you more than less, but at the same time I know time is tight. And I'm going to send that out to you tomorrow so you can see where to go about. The first ones I'm going to recommend you read a few of the reviews, the overviews, the surveys of corporate governance. There are 5 of them. The ones I would recommend are the last 3. But I will send that out tomorrow and then start sending out some other stuff. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to call me. Let me just give you a hint on how to do some of the reading. My advice always is to, if this is an abstract, read the abstract, read the introduction, and read the conclusion. And then if you decide to go back and read the thing, read the whole thing. But you get a feel for what it's about before. In that way, some of the readings you could get a feel for all of them without having to read the whole thing. And then you could then pick and choose. If you decide to read it, you could pick and choose the parts that you want to look at. What is the structure of assessment? Well, they're going to get a final. I think that's the 30th of June, if I'm right, or toward the end of June there. I'm going to give you a case to write up. And it's not going to be a typical case. I'm going to ask you for some recommendations to make, but I'm going to give you a little more structure. So maybe 3 pages to write up on a sort of a case, and you can then do a little work and make recommendations on what, based on what I'm asking you. And also I'm going to give you a little test, probably in the next couple of weeks. But let me get back to you on that. There is also a component for participation, which is what we're doing now. So I don't know if that's enough at this stage, or do you want more? Otherwise, I will give you some more tomorrow. So I will send out an email on the assessment tomorrow and on the readings. Okay. Also, I want to point out that this is not a structure that some of the other courses you have done. In a way, governance really is about management. A corporate social responsibility is about interaction with society and the community, whether it's a global or a domestic, or it's a very local parish home. So, and then you have ethical issues, which we know there are certain agreements on what is good ethics, but there are also, at some stage, people start to part company. And a lot of these issues are not necessarily, you're not necessarily going to come to a conclusion about all of them at this stage, but I want to start thinking about them. What are the issues? What are your views? As you go through life, you probably will find that these are, you might change. I have changed along the way, I can assure you of that. But that's part of the course. So it's not just to say this is a template or this is the right way. It's also to look at the issues and how we'll deal with them. So interaction and discussion and thought and reflection. Discussion not only on the site here, on our meetings, but also discussion among each other, with each other. And it's important. I don't know if that's okay at this stage. Are there any more questions right now? Okay. I'll start with international corporate governance. Okay. International, note the idea that moves the word international. It implies that there's not really one perfect, agreed upon system of governance, of corporate governance. And this is what I wanted to discuss in this session here. So, I'll just go on to the next slide. That first bullet is important. Governance systems are not uniform across countries. Okay? as I say, they are shaped by a variety of factors that are inherent in disease environment. These factors vary. So, in the Protlaka puts 5 here. Efficiency of local capital markets, protections afforded by the legal system. We're not just talking about what the law says, but how effective the legal system is. The reliability of accounting standards, how effectively are regulations enforced. And the last one, which is probably the most profound and fundamental one, societal and cultural values. I don't know, do you have any others you think they should have included here? Do you have, please just let us know. And the difference in these factors will impact agency problems and the control mechanisms needed to prevent them. Let me just talk about that. Governance, as I said, really is just a part of management. When it really comes down to it, it's looking at it from the perspective of how do you govern, how do you run, what are the processes, what are the rights and obligations and responsibilities. Notice agency, the issue of agency, which I'm sure you'll come across. The idea is how does the principal, for example, the shareholder, get the agent, management, to do what is the interest of the shareholder, the principal, as opposed to just the agent. So how do you prevent the agent from going off and doing their own thing? And that is the traditional, if you want to say, this has been the fundamental, for a long time, the fundamental issue in corporate governance, mainly because governance was discussed mainly in a US, UK, European context, especially the Anglo-American context, where you have a large number of dispersed shareholders who didn't necessarily take an active role in the company. And the issue then is how do the shareholders who it's easier for them to sell and just go about their business, buy some other shares, how can they control management? So that's if you want to say, that's the incentive issue. How do the agents get the principal get the agent to look after the agent's interest? But then some in the United States and UK, the main ones, they tend to have a large number of small shareholders. The rest of the world, you tend to have dominant shareholders. That is either not necessarily having a majority, but having de facto control, not 50%, at least enough to run the operation of the company. And they have a large stake of interest in that company, that families and groups. And the issue of control becomes important. And in this case, we're going to talk about this too. There's an article I I've put on the list, which is worth looking at, called dealing with the principal problem. In other words, the issue of how do the minority shareholders ensure that a majority or a large shareholder, a dominant shareholder, looks after their interests. There's no longer just the principal agent problem, which is what we discussed earlier. It's the principal problem. How do the minority shareholders, their principals, how do they ensure that the dominant shareholder or dominant shareholders do not abuse their position of control? So incentive and control is an issue in governance. I don't know if you have any questions or any points you want to make.